Ella's morning had already been a disaster. She was late to work. Her shoes were soaked from a sudden downpour. And her boss had given her the classic, "One more mistake and you're out" glare. But she had no choice. She needed this job. Her little sister's surgery wasn't going to pay for itself. The bell above the cafe door jingled, and Ella forced a smile before glancing up. The man who stepped inside looked like he didn't belong there. Tall, broad, shouldered with a face that could have been carved from stone. His tailored suit screamed money, and his intense gray eyes scanned the room like he owned it. She swallowed hard and grabbed her notepad. Customer is a customer, she reminded herself. Good morning, sir, can I? She never finished the sentence. A passing coworker bumped into her, and the coffee pot tipped forward, spilling hot coffee right across his expensive suit. "Oh my God," Ella gasped, dropping the pot on the counter. "I am so sorry." The entire cafe went silent. Everyone expected him to yell. Billionaires, or at least men who looked like billionaires, didn't usually take kindly to having cheap cafe coffee dumped on their 1,000 suits. But he didn't yell. Instead, the man stared at her with a strange look. Amusement, maybe. He loosened his tie and took a step closer. "You know," his deep, smooth voice rumbled, "most people just say hello." Ella blinked. Was he joking? I said I'm sorry," she stammered, grabbing a handful of napkins. "Let me clean it," but he caught her wrist gently, stopping her. "Don't worry about it. Accidents happen." Her heart thudded. Why was he being so calm? Most customers barely tipped her for good service. Yet this man, who now looked like he'd stepped out of a luxury magazine, was smiling at her like she was the most interesting thing in the room. When his coffee finally arrived, he didn't leave right away. He sat in her section, sipping slowly, watching her rush around the cafe. By the time he left, he placed a $100 bill on the table. Ella stared at it in shock, and just before walking out, he turned back to her, his lips curving into a smirk. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. Ella told herself he wouldn't come back. Men like him didn't step foot in the same cafe twice, and definitely not for someone like her. But the next morning, there he was, sitting at the exact same table, that same unreadable expression on his face. Ella's stomach flipped. Why is he here again? She tried to focus on other customers, but she could feel his eyes following her every move. When she finally approached, he looked up from his phone. "You're late," he said casually, like he had been waiting for her. Ella frowned. "You're not my boss." He smirked. "Good thing for you. Your boss might have fired you after yesterday's performance." Her cheeks burned. "If you're here to make fun of me, I'm here for coffee." He interrupted smoothly, leaning back in his chair, "and to see if the girl who nearly ruined my suit yesterday is as interesting as she seems." Ella blinked, completely thrown off. "Interesting. You don't scare easily," he said, glancing at her hands. "Most people would have cried or begged me not to sue them. You just stood your ground." Ella didn't know what to say to that. She took his order quickly and went to the counter, trying to ignore the weird flutter in her chest. When she brought him his drink, she expected him to leave after the first sip. Instead, he stayed for nearly an hour watching her, and then, as she was wiping down his table before he left, he leaned in slightly and said the last thing she ever expected. "Have dinner with me tonight." Ella froze. "Excuse me. You heard me," he said, his gray eyes locking on hers. "I'll pick you up after your shift." I don't even know your name." "Liam," he said simply, his lips curling into that same teasing smirk. Liam Blackwood. Her heart stopped. Blackwood. Everyone in the city knew that name. He wasn't just some rich guy. He was Billionaire, the one who owned half the skyscrapers downtown. "I can't," she said quickly, stepping back. "I don't date customers." "I'm not asking you to date me," he said, standing now, his tall frame making her pulse race. "I'm asking for one kiss." Ella's breath caught. "What? Just one kiss?" He repeated, his voice lower now. One kiss, and if you still want me to leave you alone, I will." He left the cafe without waiting for her answer, leaving Ella staring after him, her heart racing, her hands trembling, and her thoughts completely out of control. Ella spent the rest of the day replaying Liam's words over and over in her head. Just one kiss. Was he serious? Or was this some rich man's twisted game? She told herself she would never say yes. She wasn't the kind of girl who let a man buy her attention, no matter how expensive his suit was or how intense his gray eyes could be. But life had other plans. That night, when she got home, her phone buzzed with a call from the hospital. Her little sister, Lily, had suffered a complication. The doctor's voice was serious. They needed to move up the surgery date, which meant Ella had to come up with a deposit immediately. By the time she hung up, her hands were shaking. Her savings were nowhere near enough. She couldn't take out another loan. She'd already been denied twice. She sat on her small couch, staring at the empty wall, heart pounding, and then she thought of Liam. By morning, her pride had cracked just enough. She found herself standing outside the massive glass building with Blackwood and Company etched in gold letters on the door. Her thrift store coat felt embarrassingly out of place among the parade of suits entering the building. She almost turned around until a deep voice stopped her. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Ella spun around. Liam was there dressed in another perfect suit, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd been expecting her all along. She swallowed hard. "I came to accept your offer." His brows lifted, and then he smiled. "Slow, dangerous, is that so? But on one condition," Ella blurted out, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "One kiss, that's it. After that, you leave me alone." Liam stepped closer, so close she had to tilt her head to look at him. "I can agree to that if you agree to meet me tonight." Ella's heart thudded painfully. She nodded once quickly, afraid she'd change her mind if she thought about it too long. "Good," he said softly, his gaze lingering on her face. 700. I'll send a car." He brushed past her, leaving the faintest trace of cologne in the air, and Ella stood frozen on the sidewalk, her pulse racing. What have I just agreed to? Ella almost backed out a dozen times before 700. She paced her tiny apartment, staring at the clock, at her reflection, at the phone in her hand. But when the sleek black car pulled up outside, she found herself locking the door and stepping into the cool night air. The driver held the door open for her without a word. The leather seats smelled expensive, and her stomach twisted as the car glided through the city streets, heading somewhere far away from her ordinary life. When the car stopped, Ella's breath caught. Liam hadn't taken her to some fancy restaurant like she expected. He'd brought her to the rooftop of one of his skyscrapers. The city glittered below them like a sea of stars. He was already there waiting, his suit jacket off, his shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. The sight of him like that, powerful but relaxed, made her pulse skip. "You came," he said softly, almost like he was surprised. "I said I would," Ella murmured, wrapping her coat tighter around herself. Liam stepped closer, the wind catching his hair as he studied her face. "You're nervous." "I'm not nervous," she lied. "Yes, you are," he said, his voice low, "but so am I." That admission caught her off guard. She expected him to be arrogant, to act like this was just another game for him. But there was something different in his expression, something almost vulnerable. "Alla," he said, her name a quiet rumble in the night air. "I don't know why I can't stop thinking about you, but I need this. Just one kiss." Her heart thudded painfully. Slowly, she nodded. Liam stepped even closer until there was barely an inch between them. He reached up, brushing a stray hair from her cheek, his fingers lingering just long enough to make her shiver. Then his lips touched hers. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't casual. It was slow, deliberate, and devastatingly gentle, as if he wanted to memorize her. The city seemed to disappear. Ella's breath caught, her fingers curling into his shirt, and when he deepened the kiss, she felt the ground slip out from under her. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Liam's gaze burned into hers. "Tell me you felt nothing," he said hoarsely. Ella couldn't answer, and that silence told him everything. Ella didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying the kiss in her mind, the heat of his mouth, the way his hands had held her as if she might disappear, the way her heart had pounded so hard it hurt. And then she remembered her promise, one kiss and that's it. So the next morning, she went to work early, determined to put it all behind her. She refused to check her phone, refused to look out the window whenever a sleek black car passed, but fate apparently had other plans. 3 days later, she was rushing out of the hospital after visiting Lily when she collided with someone coming in. Strong hand caught her before she could hit the ground. Careful, Ella. Her stomach flipped. She didn't even have to look up to know who it was. Liam, she breathed, her chest tightening. He released her slowly, but didn't step back. You've been avoiding me. I told you, she said, straightening her jacket and forcing herself to step away. That kiss was supposed to be the end of it. He studied her silently, his jaw tight. Funny, it feels like the beginning. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, muttered something under his breath, then looked back at her. Have dinner with me tonight, he said, not asking this time, but insisting. I can't. Why not? Because I don't. I can't get mixed up with someone like you. He tilted his head, almost amused. Someone like me. You live in a different world, Liam. Just don't finish that sentence, he cut in sharply. You are not just anything, Ella. Her chest tightened at the way he said her name like it was something precious. Word, when she didn't answer, he sighed. Fine, but this isn't over. And true to his word, it wasn't. The next evening, she spotted him at the park near her apartment, watching Lily from a distance as she fed the ducks. The following day, he showed up at the cafe again, leaving another outrageous tip. It was as if the universe, or Liam himself, was determined to stay in her life, whether she was ready or not. And the more she saw him, the harder it became to pretend that kiss hadn't shaken her to her core. Ella's landlord was waiting outside her apartment building when she got home that evening. His arms were crossed, his scowl deep, and Ella's stomach sank immediately. You're 3 days late on rent again, he said, stepping in front of her before she could reach the stairs. I told you I'd have it by the end of the week, Ella said, trying to keep her voice calm. That's not good enough. Pay tonight or I start eviction paperwork tomorrow. Her chest tightened. She didn't have enough yet. Not with Lily's medical bills eating up every cent she made. Please, she said softly. Just give me 2 more days. But he only stepped closer, his tone turning sharp. You think I run a charity. You're lucky I haven't. Is there a problem here? The voice that cut through the air was deep, commanding, and instantly familiar. Ella turned and nearly gasped. Liam was standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, his expression calm, but his gray eyes cold as steel. This is private business, the landlord snapped. Who are you? The man who owns this building, Liam said evenly. Both Ella and the landlord froze. You what? The landlord stammered. Liam took a step forward, his height and presence suddenly filling the narrow walkway. You will give her until the end of the week, and you will speak to her with respect, or I'll find a new property manager who can. The landlord blanched, mumbled something under his breath, and hurried off. Ella stood frozen, clutching her bag. You own this building. I own a lot of buildings, Liam said simply. But right now I care about you, Ella. Are you okay? Her throat tightened at the way he said it, like it wasn't a casual question, like he genuinely wanted to know. She nodded slowly, but her chest felt strange, warm in a way she couldn't explain. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, Liam said quietly, stepping closer. I did. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The city buzzed around them, but it felt like they were the only 2 people in the world. And for the first time, Ella wondered if maybe Liam Blackwood wasn't just a spoiled billionaire with too much free time. Maybe He was something far more dangerous, someone she could fall for. Ella had barely slept since the night Liam confronted her landlord. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him standing there, calm but fierce, defending her like she actually mattered. It was dangerous, this feeling that maybe she could lean on someone, that maybe she didn't have to do everything alone. But that illusion shattered the moment she got a call from the hospital the next morning. Lily's condition had worsened, and the surgery needed to be done within days. The cost more than Ella could ever scrape together on her own. She sat outside the hospital, her head in her hands, fighting tears. Ella, her breath caught. She didn't even have to look up. She knew that voice. Liam stood there in another perfectly tailored suit. But this time, his expression was softer, concerned. "You look like the world just ended," he said quietly, crouching down so he was eye level with her. "It might as well have," she whispered. "Lily's surgery is in 3 days. I don't have the money." She swallowed hard. "I don't know what to do." For a long moment he just studied her. Then he said, "Come with me." She frowned. "What?" "Come to my office. There's something I want to discuss." She hesitated, every instinct telling her to refuse, but she followed him anyway. Minutes later, she sat across from him in his sleek glass-walled office, her heart pounding as he slid a document across the desk. "What's this?" she asked, glancing down at the pages. "A contract," Liam said smoothly. "You agree to pretend to be my girlfriend for 1 month. Public appearances, dinners, charity events, and in return, I'll cover your sister's entire medical bill." Alice's head snapped up. "What? I have a family board meeting next week," he explained. "They're pressuring me into an arranged marriage I don't want. If they think I'm already involved with someone, they'll back off for now." "You're asking me to lie," she said slowly. "I'm asking you to help me," he corrected, "and I'm offering to save your sister's life in return." Ella stared at him, torn between pride and desperation. She hated that he was right. She did need him. Finally, she whispered, "1 month, no more." Liam's mouth curved into a slow, satisfied smile. "Deal." He held out his hand, and when Ella placed hers in his, something deep inside her told her life was about to change forever. Ella thought she could handle pretending. She told herself it was just business, a simple exchange. She'd play the part of Liam Blackwood's girlfriend for a month, collect the money for Lily's surgery, and walk away. But the first night nearly shattered that plan. Liam picked her up in a car so luxurious she was afraid to touch anything. His driver opened the door for her, and she stepped out in the dress Liam had sent earlier that afternoon, a dress that hugged her curves in ways she wasn't used to. When she saw the look in Liam's eyes, her breath caught. "You look," he paused, his gray eyes sweeping over her slowly. "Perfect." Ella's cheeks warmed, and for a moment she forgot this was supposed to be fake. The gala was glittering and crowded, filled with the city's elite. Liam stayed close to her, his hand brushing hers as they greeted people, his touch sending tingles up her arm. When they stepped onto the dance floor, he pulled her close, his hand firm against her lower back. "You're good at this," she murmured as they swayed to the slow music. "So are you," he said, his voice low and warm near her ear. "Almost makes me forget you're only here for a month." Her heart thudded. "Almost." He smirked faintly. "Almost." The rest of the night was a blur, champagne-whispered jokes, stolen glances. But the moment that stuck with Ella most was in the car ride home. Liam reached over, taking her hand in his. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just doing my part." He looked at her, then really looked at her, and Ella's breath hitched. "This doesn't feel fake," he said quietly. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. When they reached her apartment, he didn't let go of her hand right away. His thumb brushed over her skin, slow and deliberate, before he finally released her. "Good night, Ella," he said, his voice deeper than usual. She barely made it inside before pressing her back to the door, her pulse racing. This was supposed to be pretend, so why did it feel like she was falling for him? The month passed. faster than Ella expected. What started as staged appearances and careful smiles had turned into late-night conversations, quiet dinners in Liam's penthouse, and kisses that felt far too real to be part of any contract. Ella didn't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, she stopped pretending. She was in love with him. That night, Liam invited her to a private dinner at his office. He said he had something important to tell her. Ella spent hours picking out a dress, curling her hair, telling herself this was it, the moment he'd asked her to stay beyond the month. But when she arrived, the office was quiet. Liam wasn't in the dining area where the table had been set. Instead, voices drifted down the hallway from behind his half-closed office door. Ella froze. "You can't keep this up forever, Liam," a man's voice said, familiar enough that Ella realized it must be Liam's brother. "I can if it keeps the board off my back," Liam replied, sounding frustrated. Ella's chest tightened. "Come on," his brother scoffed. "You expect me to believe you're serious about that waitress? This was just your way out of the arranged marriage." There was a pause. Then Liam said, "Exactly. That's all it ever was." Ella's heart felt like it cracked straight down the middle. She backed away from the door, her hands shaking, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. The words echoed in her head, "That's all it ever was." By the time Liam came out of his office, she was gone. He called her phone. She didn't answer. He sent messages. She didn't reply. When he finally showed up at her apartment, she refused to open the door. "Ella," his voice was rough, desperate. "Just talk to me." "Go away, Liam," she said through the door, her voice breaking. "You got what you wanted. The month is almost over. You don't need me anymore." There was silence on the other side. Then footsteps fading away. Ella slid down the door and buried her face in her hands. She had promised herself she wouldn't fall for him, and now her heart was paying the price. For 3 days, Liam didn't see Ella. 3 days of silence, 3 days of staring at his phone, replaying their moments together, every laugh, every kiss, every time. She looked at him like she actually saw him, not the billionaire everyone else saw. And for the first time in his life, Liam Blackwood knew what it felt like to be completely, utterly powerless. On the 4th day, he made a decision. That afternoon, Ella was at the hospital with Lily, helping her sign pre-op papers when a commotion stirred outside. "Miss," one of the nurses said, poking her head into the room, "you might want to see this." Confused, Ella followed her into the waiting area and froze. Liam was there, but not just standing quietly. No, he was in the center of the crowded lobby. Tie loosened, sleeves rolled, looking more raw and unguarded than she had ever seen him, and then he dropped to one knee. All his voice rang out across the lobby, stopping conversations, drawing everyone's eyes. "You told me you'd give me one kiss, and I promised I'd leave you alone if you wanted me to." Her throat tightened. "I lied," Liam said, his voice cracking just slightly. "Because I don't want just one kiss. I want every kiss. I want every fight, every late-night call, every morning coffee with you for the rest of my life." People were staring, phones were recording, but Liam didn't care. "I love you, Ella," he said, his voice steady now. "And I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to admit it before. But I'm done running from what I feel. So I'm asking you." His eyes searched hers desperately. "Give me one more kiss. And this time, let it be the first of forever." Ella's eyes blurred with tears. Her heart screamed at her to stay angry, but her feet were already moving, carrying her toward him. When she reached him, Liam stood, and without hesitation, she threw her arms around his neck and kissed him right there in front of everyone. It was nothing like their first kiss. This one was messy, emotional, fierce, the kind of kiss that told the whole world she forgave him. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling through her tears. "One more kiss," she whispered, resting her forehead against his. "But I'm not stopping there." Liam's answering grin was full of relief and love. "Good, because neither am I." And as he kissed her again, Ella knew with absolute certainty This was no longer pretend. This was forever.